There is a moment almost every man who has dated a single mother will remember. It's not the first date, it's not the first fight. It's a quiet Tuesday night. You're sitting in her living room. Her kids are asleep. She looks exhausted, not just physically, but deeply tired, in a way you can feel from across the room. And she smiles at you, and you think, this feels right. This is what love actually looks like. But somewhere in the back of your mind, a small, quiet voice says something you immediately ignore. Am I building something here? Or am I slowly disappearing into someone else's life? You push that thought down because you love her, because the kids need stability, because leaving feels selfish. And that, right there, that moment of silence, is where most men lose themselves. Today, I'm going to walk you through exactly what happens inside relationships with single mothers. The emotional traps nobody warns you about. The psychological shifts most men don't notice until they're already deeply hurt. And the 3 questions every man must answer honestly before he ever commits to this kind of situation. I'm also going to share something near the end of this video that most men never talk about out loud. A feeling so specific, so uncomfortable, that when I describe it, you will feel like I was reading your personal diary. So stay with me until the very end. If you've ever dated a single mother, or if you're currently in that situation, type, "I know that feeling," in the comments right now. Let's begin. When a man first meets a single mother, something unusual happens to his psychology. She doesn't feel like other women. She speaks differently. She's more grounded, less interested in games. She's been through real life, financial pressure, emotional heartbreak, the weight of responsibility. And it shows in the way she carries herself. She tells you she's tired of toxic men, tired of chaos, tired of men who don't know what they want. And for a man who has spent years navigating modern dating, the mixed signals, the immaturity, the emotional unavailability, her words sound like something rare. Finally, a woman who actually knows what she wants. But here's the psychological trap most men never see in time. Exhausted people often confuse stability with emotional availability. Those are not the same thing. A woman can genuinely want love, deeply, sincerely, and still have almost no emotional energy left to give it. She is not lying to you. She is not manipulating you. She is simply overloaded. And when someone is overloaded, a new relationship slowly transforms from a connection they nurture into another responsibility they manage. That shift is invisible in the beginning, but it is always there. And the man begins the relationship feeling chosen, special, selected, wanted. Then gradually, almost without noticing, he begins feeling something else. Scheduled, fitted into empty spaces, like a puzzle piece inserted into a picture that was already mostly finished before he arrived. Now, Zoe, why does this happen? Why does it feel so different at the beginning compared to 6 months in? The answer lies in something called emotional architecture. I'll explain exactly what that is in just a few minutes, and once you understand it, you will never approach this kind of relationship the same way again. But first, I need to tell you about the hierarchy. Let me say something clearly before we go any further. A good mother should put her children first. Any woman who abandons her children emotionally for a new romantic relationship is not emotionally healthy. That is not the point of this conversation. The point is what that reality quietly does to the man over time. Because most men enter these relationships believing that love will eventually create emotional balance, that if you are patient enough, loyal enough, present enough, you will earn a real place in her emotional world. But over time, they discover something painful. No matter how loyal they are, no matter how much they provide, no matter how many times they show up, they will always exist below an emotional hierarchy they did not create. And at first, this feels manageable. Plans get canceled because a child is sick. Conversations get interrupted constantly. Intimacy becomes inconsistent. The relationship begins operating around exhaustion instead of around connection. Men try to understand. Most genuinely do. But there is a difference between logically understanding a situation and feeling emotionally fulfilled inside one. And slowly, almost invisibly, many men begin to feel something they never expected to feel inside a loving relationship. Emotionally invisible, not abused, not betrayed, just unfed. You stop feeling like someone's partner, and you start feeling like emotional support staff inside a life that was already built before you arrived. Pause for a moment. Be honest with yourself. Have you ever felt truly prioritized in a relationship? Or have you mostly felt like the person who fills in whatever emotional space is left over after everyone else has already taken their piece? That answer matters more than you realize, because men don't stay simply where they are needed. Men stay where they feel chosen. And the moment a man stops feeling chosen, the moment he starts feeling managed, something begins breaking quietly underneath the surface. I want to come back to something important. Because the feeling of being emotionally invisible, most men assume it's their fault. They think they're being too needy, too sensitive, too demanding. But there is a psychological reason this happens that has nothing to do with weakness. I'll break that down coming up. Keep watching. Here is the truth most men are afraid to admit out loud. When you date a single mother, in most cases, you are not just dating her. You are dating her history, her wounds, her unresolved emotional connections. And in many cases, you are living inside the permanent shadow of another man, the father of her children, even if she claims she hates him, even if the relationship ended years ago, even if she never mentions his name voluntarily. His existence is permanently woven into the relationship you are trying to build. If he is active in the children's lives, his schedule becomes your schedule. His decisions affect your plans. His texts interrupt your evenings. Holidays, birthdays, emergencies, school events. Another man's presence never fully disappears from your daily reality. And if he is absent, a different kind of tension emerges. Why did they end? Was she emotionally responsible in that relationship? Were there red flags she ignored? Was the chaos mutual? Because whether people say it out loud or not, a woman's past relationship patterns reveal information about her emotional judgment. And here is what most men discover too late. Even when she is emotionally over him romantically, she is rarely fully disconnected psychologically. They share history, trauma, memories, children, emotional scars, sometimes unresolved anger, sometimes unresolved attachment. The romance may be dead, but the emotional footprint survives, and the man standing in front of her now is expected to navigate all of that, calmly, maturely, without complaint. I want you to ask yourself something honest. Have you ever felt like you were not just competing with her present situation, but with her entire emotional past? Like no matter how present you were, something invisible kept pulling part of her attention elsewhere? If yes, this next section is specifically for you. Earlier, I mentioned something called emotional architecture. Here is what that means. Every relationship has an emotional structure, a framework built from history, habits, priorities, and psychological patterns that were formed long before you arrived. When two people build a relationship from scratch, they construct that architecture together. The foundation is shared. The priorities are negotiated. The emotional territory belongs to both people equally. But when you step into a relationship where a woman already has children, an existing co-parenting dynamic, financial obligations, unresolved emotional wounds, and established routines, you are not building from scratch. You are being inserted into an architecture that was already designed around someone else's life. And no matter how much she loves you, no matter how genuine her feelings are, the structure itself was not built with you in mind. This is not her fault, it is simply reality. But the psychological effect on men is profound. Because masculine energy, at its core, needs alignment between responsibility and authority. Men function best when the weight they carry matches the influence they hold. When those two things are separated, when a man is expected to contribute, protect, provide, and sacrifice inside a household where he has very little actual authority, resentment begins growing underneath the relationship. Quietly, invisibly, but consistently. And children sense this faster than adults realize. Kids are extraordinarily sensitive to power structures inside a home. They quickly recognize when a man carries responsibility, but does not truly hold authority. Some children become resistant. Others test boundaries constantly. Others create emotional distance. And the man finds himself in an impossible position. If he becomes too involved, he's controlling. If he stays distant, he's cold. If he disciplines, he's overstepping. If he says nothing, he's weak. So he spends years walking on emotional eggshells inside a relationship where he can never fully relax. And eventually, exhaustion starts replacing love. Now here is the part that breaks most men. Not the children, not the ex, not even the emotional exhaustion. There is one specific moment, one realization, that changes everything for a man in this situation. And most men never see it coming until it's already too late. I'm going to describe it in detail coming up, and I promise you, if you've experienced it, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. Most men do not walk into these relationships expecting to become providers. In the beginning, helping feels natural. You pay for dinner. You cover small things. You step in during stressful moments because you care about her and because you genuinely want to help. A good man naturally wants to help the people he loves. That instinct is real. It is healthy. But emotional attachment changes financial boundaries faster than most men understand. Because once you are deeply connected to someone's daily struggles, once you feel the weight of her exhaustion, her stress, her limited options, saying no starts feeling emotionally cruel. And nobody explicitly tells you that you must provide. The guilt does the work instead. You see her overwhelmed. You see the children needing support. You see pressure building inside the household. And because you care, your instinct pushes you to solve it. But over time, something subtle begins shifting. His resources, his energy, his peace, all of it flowing toward responsibilities he did not create. And if appreciation is missing, that sacrifice slowly transforms into quiet resentment. Because a man can willingly sacrifice for people he feels deeply connected to. But when sacrifice becomes expected instead of appreciated, love begins turning into emotional exhaustion. I want you to answer this honestly. Not for me, but for yourself. Are you currently contributing to a situation financially or emotionally, not because it feels natural, but because pulling back would make you feel guilty? Because that specific feeling, guilt masquerading as love, is one of the most dangerous emotional traps a man can fall into. The fastest way to drain a man completely is to make him responsible for solving problems that existed long before he arrived. And eventually, after enough pressure builds, men begin asking themselves a painful question they can no longer push down. Am I loved for who I am, or valued for what I can carry? This is the moment I promised earlier. The moment that breaks most men in this situation. Not the exhaustion, not the financial pressure, not even the emotional invisibility. It's a specific realization that arrives quietly, usually in the middle of an ordinary moment. Maybe you're driving home from her house late at night. Maybe you're sitting with the kids helping with homework while she handles something else. Maybe you're lying awake at 2 a.m. doing the math on your own life, and the realization hits you. The man who came before me, the one who created the chaos, the instability, the broken household she needed to escape. He received the best version of her. He received her when she was open, when she was soft, when the requirements were lower and the emotional gates were wide open. He received passion before the conditions became strict. He received her children before stability became mandatory. And now, the safe man arrives later. The responsible man, the emotionally mature man. And he is expected to carry responsibilities the reckless man never had to carry, to repair damage he never created. And once that realization enters a man's mind fully, the emotional energy shifts permanently. He stops feeling chosen. He starts feeling practical, like a solution, like emotional insurance, like the responsible option after someone else already experienced the exciting chapter. That feeling destroys attraction faster than almost anything else in a relationship. Because men can survive pressure, men can survive sacrifice, men can survive exhaustion. But most men emotionally shut down, slowly, completely, the moment they feel primarily valued for what they provide rather than for who they are. But here is what I haven't told you yet. There is something even more painful than this realization. Something that happens after a man has fully bonded, not just with her, but with the children. And what happens when that relationship ends? This is the part society almost never talks about. It's coming up in the next section. Do not skip it. Over time, many men stop seeing the children as her kids. They become part of his emotional world. He picks them up from school. He teaches them things. He comforts them when they're scared. He shows up for birthdays, dinner tables, small ordinary moments that slowly build real emotional attachment, without him ever consciously deciding it was happening. And then, the relationship ends. Those children disappear from his life overnight. No legal rights, no custody, no guaranteed contact, no protection for the emotional bond he spent years quietly building. One breakup, one conversation, and an entire emotional world he invested himself into, simply gone. And in that moment, men discover something nobody prepared them for. They are not only grieving the woman, they are grieving children they loved like family. And society offers almost nothing for that grief. People talk about the mother's pain, the children's adjustment, the co-parenting challenges. But almost nobody talks about the man who showed up completely, who gave guidance, presence, protection, love, inside a family structure that offered him no legal protection and no guarantee of permanence. That kind of loss changes men deeply, and it is exactly why emotionally experienced men become extremely cautious about attachment in complicated relationships. Because once a man bonds deeply, logic weakens. Boundaries weaken. His tolerance for unhealthy dynamics increases because he is terrified of losing people he genuinely loves. You can spend years pouring your heart into a family that can legally and emotionally vanish from your life in a single conversation. Earlier, I promised I would describe a feeling so specific that it would feel like I was reading your personal diary. Here it is. The feeling of standing in a doorway, half inside a family, half outside it, fully invested, but never fully belonging. Not a visitor, not a stranger, but not quite a father either. Carrying the weight of the role, without the security of the title. If you felt that, you already know exactly what I mean. I don't want this to become cynical. That is not the purpose of this conversation. Because not every relationship with a single mother ends in emotional destruction. Some become genuinely beautiful partnerships. But the reason those relationships work is almost never what people assume. They work because both people stopped pretending the situation was simple. The woman is emotionally accountable. She doesn't minimize the complications or act entitled to the sacrifices being made. She has healthy boundaries with the father of her children. She has done real emotional work, not just moved on, but actually healed. And the man enters intentionally, not from loneliness, not from a rescuer mentality, not from fear that he cannot attract other women. He chooses the situation with clear eyes. He understands the emotional architecture before he builds inside it. That changes everything. Because complicated relationships only survive when both people stop performing and start being honest. Love alone is never enough to overcome denial. Awareness matters. Boundaries matter. Emotional maturity, from both sides, matters. Before any man commits himself fully to this kind of relationship, he must answer 3 questions honestly. Not to the woman, not to the world, to himself. Question 1. Am I choosing this woman specifically, or am I choosing the opportunity to not feel alone? Because loneliness makes men tolerate situations they would normally walk away from. A man who doubts his own value will accept emotional conditions that do not actually make him happy. And that almost always becomes deep resentment later. Question 2. Does she take accountability for her past? Or does she constantly blame everyone else? Because unresolved emotional chaos always leaks into new relationships eventually. Her relationship with the father of her children, how she speaks about him when emotions rise, tells you everything you need to know about the emotional environment you are stepping into. Question 3. Does she show genuine appreciation for your sacrifice, or does she simply expect it? Because gratitude creates connection. Entitlement destroys it. A woman who truly respects your effort behaves very differently from a woman who treats your presence as something she is owed. Answer those 3 questions honestly. And whatever your answers reveal, listen to them. Because most men are not destroyed by women. They are destroyed by stepping into situations they never fully understood, until it was already too late to leave without losing pieces of themselves. The truth is, this conversation was never really about single mothers. It was about awareness. It was about the difference between choosing a relationship with clear eyes and falling into one with your eyes closed because the beginning felt so good. A strong man does not ignore reality just because he feels emotionally attached. He asks difficult questions. early, honestly, even when the answers are uncomfortable. Because the men who avoid the trap are almost always the men willing to see the truth before their emotions blind them to it. If this video describes something you have personally lived through, leave your experience in the comments. I read every single one. And your story might be exactly what another man needs to hear before he makes the same mistake. If you found this valuable, share it with one man in your life who you think needs to see this. Not to hurt anyone, but because real friendship means telling people the truth before they get hurt. Subscribe to this channel if you want to understand female psychology, emotional dynamics, and the hidden patterns that shape modern relationships at a level most people never reach. Because the goal has never been to make men afraid of love. The goal is to make sure that when a good man gives his heart, he gives it to a situation that was actually built to hold it. Take care of yourself. I'll see you in the next one.